I'm sure. Is there any questions?
We're just going to walk up here. I'll put these on the podium and I'll put them on.
There is 2 seats up front. All right, and so it is my great honor to introduce Ellen Spencer, who's our speaker this evening. She is a witch. 1980 degree. She has a BA in art history from Smith College.
Yeah, I have to bring this up when she goes up and I got to put them on here also.
She's a former member and chair of the Winchester Historical Commission. She's a current member and former chair of the Design Review Committee. And I have to tell you, a lifelong, tremendous average enthusiast, as you might imagine, of Robert Coit. And so, please join me in a warm welcome for Ellen Spencer.
All right, we're going to do a little switch. I apparently need to be mic'd up twice. This might take a minute. One for WinCam and one for this. For both? Oh, that didn't take too long at all. Okay. Hello, everyone. Let me just... as some of you may know, actually you probably all know now since there was a copy of it on your seats, several years ago the Winchester Historical Society commissioned me to research and write a monograph on the architect Robert Coit. I'm not the tech person.
You actually don't sound like your mom.
Can you?
Okay, I don't know which one's which. Let's double check.
I mean, there is a handheld here, but I don't know that it's. Is that any better? Is that any better? No?
Okay, that one's on. I'm going to up the volume in back.
I will wait.
For me, the motivation to restore the carriage house, this might be a good incentive. Imagine an auditorium with proper acoustics. What do you think?
I don't know how. I'm not sure how large the interior is, but when I was on the historical commission years ago, that's where we met. That's where our meetings were, and that's where the archives. Yes, in the carriage house.
Oh, in the carriage house.
Uh-huh.
It was
Yep.
very nice.
Well, it was crowded, but it was in better shape than it is now.
Yeah.
So,
Up the volume. So.
is this any better? Can people? I can't yell. I'm getting over a cold. I will lose my voice. But well, anyway, let me try with the mic. You want to try? Oh God.
We'll shut this off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's at least on.
That was something. All right, actually, so just try.
Okay, is that better? No, it doesn't sound it.
Here.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay. Hello?
Oh God. Okay. How's this? Kind of an. There's an echo. How?
Have it closer to the mouth, otherwise we're moving.
So is it better down?
Shut off the other one.
Which, well, I'm not a tech person. I have two here. One is for WinCam. I don't know which one to shut off. So can somebody help me?
Let's get the WinCam first.
So lower the volume on the work for
How's this? Is this all right? No?
Close it up to your mouth.
How's this? No. I will just try to speak as loud as possible. How's this? Let me know if I start going down, but I feel like I'm screaming at you. Okay. Anyway, the monograph on your seats. I was commissioned years ago by the Winchester Historical Society to research and write this monograph as part of their Architects of Winchester publication series. This was actually this was published back in 2007, which I realized was 18 years ago, and kind of unbelievably. Anyway, shortly after the publication of that, I gave a talk on kind of a chronological talk of Coit's life and career here in Winchester. Tonight I'm not doing that. You have that. I will give a brief overview of it, but what I mostly want to focus on are some really exciting new discoveries, recent discoveries that contribute a lot to our understanding of Coit's importance to the look of Winchester today, even today. What are these exciting new discoveries? Well, they are a series of 11 photographs that initially taken by Coit's architectural office himself shortly after buildings were built. And how they were discovered was last December, I was on the Winchester Facebook page, and I'm not often there, so this was very serendipitous. I saw them posted, and I looked at them, and they were all, they're kind of sepia and white, I guess you would call them, architectural cards, and they're stamped on the back, and identified. Not the addresses, but the houses identified with the name of the first owner. So there's no question that these came from his office, and we have nothing from his office. None of his papers. None of we don't know what all happened to it when he closed his office in 1942. But this is an exciting thing. So I immediately reached out on Facebook to the person who posted them, asking about them and where you got them, and he, turns out, is interested in a member of the Stoneham Historical Commission, and he likes to go poking around for old architectural... Melrose, sorry. Was that you, Shane? Oh, it's Shane. It was Shane Egan. There he is. Anyway, sorry, I knew it was one or the other. And he likes to go around and gather old photographs, and he found these and posted them for us. And in a local... I don't know how local, I don't know exactly where, an antiques shop. So I encouraged him to donate them to the town archives, which he graciously did. Anyway, these, again, are professional architectural photographs taken by Coit's office. They're all from the 1890s, which was the first decade of his solo career. After he had spent some formative years at the prominent architectural firm of Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow in Boston. We're going to see many examples of residential architecture that be traced directly to his time at Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow, which is a new direction, at least for me. And was a prominent firm in both Boston and Pittsburgh that was really flourishing after H.H. Richardson died quite early in 1886. I will move to the first slide because I'm sure this is boring. But just a brief recap of Coit's career, a brief bio. He was born in 1861. Brookfield, Massachusetts. His father was a pastor. He graduated from Harvard College in 1883, and then spent a year as the private secretary to the U.S. minister of what was then called Persia in Tehran. And during that time, sometime between 1883 and 1884, his parents moved to Winchester. They had coming most directly from Lawrence, Massachusetts. So he came home from this journey, living presumably with his parents. He then enrolled in the MIT School of Architecture for a year program, graduating from that in 1886. Spent his first year as, I assume, a staff architect or an apprentice at another prominent firm, Hartwell and Richardson. I'm looking at Maureen because she knows it off the top of her head. But then, as I said, 3 years at Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow. And one thing I want you to keep in mind is that Coit was very adept. He learned a lot at LAH, and he became very adept in the range of styles that they also gave out, and was able to really successfully work in a kind of a combination and a new juxtaposition of several revival styles, not only the Queen Anne, late Victorian Queen Anne, but also the Tudor revival and the colonial revival styles. But he did do 3 important public or non-residential buildings in Winchester. The earliest one on your left is the Winchester Boat Club, which was completed in 1901. Now, maybe you all know, but the boat club was an outgrowth of the Shushuga Canoe Club, which was a group of gentlemen, Coit included. He was one of them who liked canoeing and boating on the lakes. Decided to kind of professionalize, I guess, or up their game, when they changed their name to the Winchester Boat Club in 1900. And since Coit was one of the founding members and he was an architect and the other people were also kind of movers and shakers in town, he was elected to design it. The other 2 public buildings are quite a bit later in his career. On your right is the first Congregational Church addition from about 1926. Coit worked on this with another architectural firm called Allen and Collins, and he also was a member of this congregation. So I guess there's no surprise that he was also called upon to join with them. This, I think you can see, is, and he's taken pains to integrate it with the original building, with the kind of rough stone on the lower floors and then stucco above, but he's definitely designed this in the Tudor revival style with most of the half timbering up on the, I guess that's story, the small peaked dormers, and a little hard to see in this photograph, but the main door to the addition is comes to an arch, like a kind of a Gothic arch. And then, I don't know if you know, but he did the Winchester Public Library. This was quite late in his career, 1932, and again, it was with another firm, Killings and Greeley, who were more experienced specifically in designing libraries. But no surprise to learn, Coit had been a trustee of the Winchester Public Library for 10 years, and so of course he was also in on the ground floor of this. This, like the First Congregational Church edition, owes a lot to the English church tradition, with its kind of horizontal massing and the rough stonework, and also I would say also does have some affinity with H.H. Richardson himself. So those are the public things in Winchester. He did a few other things. It's gone now, but there was a town hall for the town of Burlington, generally his practice was residential. The other main thing that people know about him is he does, as I said, he moved with these movers and shakers. He designed their, well, I guess we call them mansions, in a also what I would consider a kind of a Tudor revival style merged with arts and crafts. Herman Dudley Murphy, this house is on Highland Avenue. He was a very well-known artist and picture frame maker. His house and studio, that's on the left. On the right, the Samuel McCall house up on Myopia Road, with an incredible view of the lakes and Boston. McCall was a lawyer and multi-term state representative. He was even governor of the state back in like 1916, 1918, and he was also very active in Winchester affairs. The other two are the Samuel Elder House, which is no longer standing. It was destroyed by fire, I think, in the late 1970s at 4 Fernway. And again, Elder was, he was a lawyer and also very active in town and state affairs. And then the fourth part of it, because it sprawls across the top of Myopia, as the Jerry Downs house, and it's about 10 years later. It is about 10 years later than the other ones, but again, you can see this kind of Tudor revival being used for these very large mansions and for prominent Winchester citizens, and they're all they have many similarities. They're clad in stucco. They have either brick or stone, significant brick or stone porches. They see where you can see this. Let me go back to this one. There is some half timbering on the Herman Dudley Murphy house to break up the expanses of stucco. And there are many smaller details too. I don't have a pointer, but nope, I better not do that. Fascia boards on the front go to a slight peak. There are chamfered purlin ends. It's all based. It's very much based on kind of English medieval architecture as reinterpreted by the late 19th century arts and crafts movement. All the mansions are situated on top of steep hills, either on Highland Ave overlooking the town. The others are all up overlooking the Mystic Lakes, and they all have this. This is very common in all Coit's work. The second story has a slight overhang from the first. So these are the kind of big notable projects that Coit did. But the fact is that the bulk of his work in Winchester was residential. In his obituary, it mentions that he is responsible for 50 houses, and I have a running chronology list that I keep and add to, and I counted up the other day, and it's closer to 80. I mean, it's unbelievable. There are multiple houses on Everett Ave, Sheffield West, Stratford Road, Lakeview, Cabot Street, and throughout the flats, Church Street, Black Horse Terrace, Fairview Terrace, Glengarry, Pine, Dix, Walcott Terrace, Highland Avenue, Mystic Valley Parkway, and there are more. So it's a lot, and you know, they're all still here and with a few exceptions, intact. So it really contributes a great deal to the way Winchester looks today. I want to get to the actual new photographs of some of these houses and what they can add to our knowledge. The first development, this was probably the most single exciting thing for me to see. This is 10 Pine Street, which is it's next to the first development. I don't really think it's part of the development. And when I was writing the monograph so long ago. It's always been suspected strongly on basis of style that Coit was the architect that William and Isabella Firth hired to develop what was a piece of their land, but we had no documentation until this. And the interesting thing about this house is, it's not one of the ones that anyone ever thought was a Coit or part of the Firth development, because it looks different. And that's why I say I don't think it was. It's on a much larger plot of land. It's a much larger house with a carriage house, which is there. There's a second home there now, kind of adapted from it, but you can see the original carriage house in the right slide. These are two views of the same house, just on the left. So this was slightly a year or two earlier than the other Firth development houses. So I think, but here we can absolutely see that Coit. This is now proof that Coit was working in the area, and to me it's just self-evident that the other houses there are his too, on basis of style. This is it's a form that I think people who think about the Coit houses in town, it was a bit surprising, because I thought, wow, this looks different from a lot of the things that I've seen before. But as I go through more of the slides, I think you'll see that this is kind of, it's kind of a combination of a late, Queen Anne with the turret, with a colonial revival, base is the wrong word. The central size, the central core of the house. These are all the houses people say that they love when they say they love Winchester architecture. I wanted to just look at some of the Firth development houses now in a new light, because I always knew they were Coit. I can find you many other examples in town of these kinds of designs in different sizes, and you can see this one is more. This is the center entrance, more colonial, if you will, except for he's got except for in some of the details. The one on the right is a very common style, where you've got the main house with a perpendicular gable coming out with a slight overhang and a bay window underneath. On the porch, there are kind of curved Gothic dividers. So it's what I think it's a very successful amalgam of the revival styles of the time. This is an old and new photo of Pine Street, and these are, by the way, I just wanted to really take a close look at the Firth development, because I was not able to do that in the monograph because it was not documented. This is 5 Pine, and you can see how little, other than some colors, it has changed over time, and how it's kind of a slightly larger version of the one we just saw on the right. This is also Coit. Okay, this is doesn't really scream arts and crafts or Tudor revival. It's more colonial revival, and it's hard to see in some of these photos, but you still have the overhangs with the bay windows underneath. You have some decorative brackets in lots of different places. So he's picking and choosing different styles, and I think combining them really very successfully. No two houses are the same in this development. It's like 10 or 12 houses. Another two. These are two different ones. Again, lots of these brackets. Some leaded glass windows. That's another feature that he likes to use for accent windows. This double gable, this is on Glengarry. We see in several of his other houses around town. And finally, 11 Pine. Also, I don't know how old this photo is, but again, they just still look the way they looked. The topography is, we've got more trees and things. And the other thing I wanted to say, kind of in appreciation of the architect, is that this is, anyone's who walked around there, it's not the easiest site to develop. It dips down and around, and these were small lots, and Coit did a really, and again, this is in the 1890s, so still early in his career. He really did a masterful job of placement too of these houses. Okay, back to the new photos. You can tell that these were taken shortly after completion because there's very little vegetation, and in fact there's still dirt piles in front of 6 Black Horse Terrace. But these, and what you're seeing in this photograph, the house behind it, you're seeing in greater detail on the right, and that's actually, this is Black Horse Terrace. That's actually Hillside Ave, which today you see how close they were, but it's all grown up, and you can't, it looks very different. Again, this house is colonial revival. It still has a lot of, I suppose, Victorian porches, except for their colonial in their details. But he's always got these brackets, decorative. They're just decorative, around often the eaves. And this house on Hillside is one of the 2 houses that Coit built, and this one is not quite so much changed today. The other one really is. I also just love that you can kind of see behind the one on the right to. I think the one right behind is another Coit house. That is obviously an earlier, more Italianate house. One thing that I wanted to show. This is across the street. This is 3 Black Horse Terrace. You can tell this is also by Coit. So a lot of the times we'll get confirmation about one house, and then when you look around, you see that he's clearly done 2 or 3, in this area. And so that's been fun for me to kind of discover. Moving on to Cabot Street and the Flats. This is a house on Cabot Street. Here it is today. That again, I didn't think was by Coit, and we know that the other side of Cabot, from 11 to 19, is all Coit houses, and it's a part of the Wedgmere Syndicate development that was developing the whole Flats area, between Cambridge Street, Wildwood, and Fletcher, from about 1890 to 1916. It wasn't all developed at once. It was developed kind of closer to the 4-way stop first, out more towards Cambridge Street. And this house, again, is a little bit earlier than when he did all the houses across the street. And it's actually the house that a very good friend of mine they've moved now, but lived in for years. And I've been in it, and I didn't realize. And it also, I want to just think back to 10 Pine because, here it's smaller, but here you still have, and as part of the otherwise basically kind of colonial revival. So that's what I was talking about when, it's kind of like a new type of Coit house that we never kind of realized where he was doing so much here in town. The main thing that I have noticed that changes between the contemporary photos and the old ones are even most of the house is intact, but the porches get changed a lot. Here's the original, which just has a kind of a gazebo bump out porch, and it is hard to see. I mean, getting pictures today, you have to intrude on people's properties. But right now, that's gone, and the front porch wraps around the side. These windows are still here, but the porch just goes all the way back. And it's very nice. It's just not original, and you wouldn't necessarily. And what's been changed is well done, so you wouldn't necessarily know this one had been changed. So it's really nice to see it in its original form. Here's the same Cabot Street house, and I just wanted to bring back the Pine Street house so you could see the ways in which, it does, they do relate to each other, although this one's obviously, this is plenty big, don't get me wrong, but on a smaller scale, how he's playing and combining with these different architectural elements, so they don't look cookie cutter. They never do. Two doors down from the one we just looked at was a real surprise. This is it's a relatively recent photo. This is how it looks, and this is how it was, so it is very different, but. And again, previously we'd not even known or suspected to be a house by Coit, except for now we have this photograph documenting it. And again, the overhang, second-story overhang over a bay window, even though it's basically a colonial revival house, and then your all your decorative brackets and dentils, and I was looking at this, and it reminded me of something, and so I realized that on the right you have a house by Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow. It's the Noyes House in Cambridge from roughly the same time. And remember, he worked there for 3 years, and I think you can see that he was trained well. There is an absolute correlation, but it's by no means just a slavish copy. The Henry Ordway house on 22 Myrtle Street, then and now. And you all know this one. It's the yellow one, kind of as you're going up towards the intersection by South Border Road and Highland Ave. A house I've always loved. And again, we have a lot of the kinds of architectural details that we've seen in other houses. It's mainly colonial revival in style, which was an interest of Coit's, obviously, but with a lot of his own characteristic details. And I think I have here it is in relation to another Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow house from Cambridge, the A.H. Devon's house. And I think particularly at the third level with that very distinctive set of dormers with the arch over the center one, you can see that this is where Coit got the idea for that. Both houses are. Let's see. And these are very steep dormers. So. 92 and 94 Church Street, these we did know were by Coit, but this is the earliest photographs I've ever seen of them. 92, we actually, it's the earliest documented Coit house in Winchester. We have the owner has the original plans, and Coit at this time, and also when he was developing the and Everett and Sheffield, was doing a lot of work for the developer Phineas Nickerson. And that, again, this is in the 1890s right off the bat. You know, he's connected in town. He really, he seems to be the architect of choice for a lot of these developers. Both of these houses are really predominantly Queen Anne in style, with the turrets probably more prominent than any of the other houses that he did in town. But they do include elements from the other revival styles that were coming into play more and more towards the end of the 19th century. Well, yes, you can see there. I can't move. On the right of the house on the left, on the third story, you see a very un-Victorian Palladian window. There's another one on this side. And again, although it's hard to see in these photos, there are also some decorative brackets that are in a style that you would not have seen in high Victorian houses. And just one more comparison with, oh, sorry, I have got these are, and then the other photos that were, here we go, there's another, yeah, here's another, this is better. These brackets, there's more over here on the underhang. So it's a real mix of kind of revival styles, even in the early 1890s. And again, I think it's so interesting to see the terrain around these, given, and the one on the right, as we all know, this one, 92 is still intact as kind of is. The other one has a large addition on it, but you still can see very well the main building, the integrity of the main building. And then one last comparison for Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow was the 94 Church Street with this estate, not in Cambridge but in Illinois. A little bit earlier, but you can kind of see, I think you can see quite a few correlations with that. So, I mean, you know, one of my takeaways is from these photographs is how important his time was when he was working at Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow, you know, and how much that really grounded him for what he did for the rest of his career. This is not one of the old photos, but this is a new discovery. And it's right across the street from 92 and 94. It's 93. And I've always known it was a Coit house, but couldn't prove it. It's typically, I mean, it's very much, you know, the Tudor revival, huge. But a few years ago, I can't remember the exact date, Ellen Knight, our own Ellen Knight, discovered a Boston real estate ad, which pictured it with text identifying Coit as the architect. And I just wanted to put it in. So it is still a new discovery, even though this photograph isn't one of the ones we just acquired. And it was for sale in 1919 by Phineas Nickerson. So again, the Nickerson house. And I just want to read you a quick quote from the real estate jargon of the day. The very name Winchester connotes the ultimate in distinctive homes in this splendid example of Elizabethan charm and simplicity. Robert Coit's genius as an architect has attained a rare perfection. And the other thing that's really worth noting about this is that, think of that, this is one of the most prominent intersections in Winchester, and 3 out of the 4 houses are Coit's. Yeah. So it's kind of cool. The last of the newly donated photographs is on Central Street. Oops, we didn't get a... Oh, yeah, that's right. It was. I guess it was moved. This is on the corner of Central and Norwood. Okay, and one reason you wouldn't suspect it to be a Coit house today is because this one has been altered, and a long time ago, but also fairly recently, and it just always looked kind of wrong to me. But here it is in its original form, which is lovely, and I think is by now hopefully immediately recognizable to you all as one of Coit's preferred types of designs. And yeah, and also it resonates with some of the other houses we've seen tonight. And I just wanted to kind of conclude. I have a few other interior pictures I just want to quickly show you, but to conclude this part of the talk by saying that, the addition of these photos to the Winchester archives really is so valuable to our knowledge and understanding of Coit and his extensive work in Winchester. I mean, the photos of already known Coit houses give us really early views of them, right after they were built, and the photos of previously unknown houses obviously provide valuable documentation that Coit was the architect first for the Firth development, and give us new insights into the varied architectural designs that had their origins in his tenure at Longfellow, Alden, and Harlow. And I do want, I'm sure you're ready for me to be done, but at the end of my first talk 18 years ago, I added some interior photos which I had taken myself in my research. I was able to contact owners of Coit houses and get into a lot of them. People were lovely, and we've been looking at exteriors, and I just want to show you some of Coit's hallmarks in their interiors. The chief one being the most incredible jigsaw cut balusters in and they're all different. I mean, there are a few. I haven't been in every house. Most of them are different, and that's my house down there. And you know what? When we house, I walked into the house and I saw that, and I was like 90% sold. That feature. And fortunately, these were all machine made, but they're incredibly sturdy, and I think Coit. I think they could be custom designed, and I'm pretty sure Coit. And he definitely specified these different specific ones for different houses. Here's some more, and a lot of them have painted, which is also pretty cool. And I don't really know which one's my favorite, Also, fireplaces. Again, you've got brackets. Sometimes you have these like shield designs, but at the very least you get brackets. Pretty simple. This one in 17 Everett Avenue, which is one of the more English of Coit's houses, looks so much like William Morris and Voysey. I mean, I've been to one of Morris's houses, Standon, in England, and the famous living room. I mean, it just looks so much like this. The other thing is most of the doorways to the rooms are your typical, like this. But he often has these pointed arch inner. Ogee, thank you. Some more fireplace. And then just finally, these show various examples of his use of Mercer tile, which is, Henry Chapman Mercer, his arts and crafts tile maker from Pennsylvania, who wanted to revive, like Morris, but in textiles and fabrics, but in tile, revive the old, medieval or Tudor qualities of tile. And so in some of Coit's houses, we find that. And that is it for me, but before... Thank you. Before I let you go, I would like to call Nancy Schrock up, because she has an exciting project to tell you about.
Yeah,
You're probably not...
You just saw the front of my front door.
Well, good.
But I've been the lucky owner of a Coit house for 42 years. And I've been working on my house, finding its history, searching in the town archives with Ellen. And
Ellen Knight.
Ellen Knight, who we owe a lot. We owe a great deal to for cataloging so many photographs. But my question is looking at both opportunities for programs and fundraising. By a show of hands, would anybody be interested in taking a workshop on how to research and learn more about your house? There would be an interest, because I'm looking for programs that use our facilities. Also, I was finishing the last panel of our exhibit, so I didn't put this out, but this is the story of my house in deeds, and I'll leave it out if anyone wants to look at it. And I think you didn't mention Ellen Knight kindly let us have the original photographs.
Oh.
They're albumin prints.
Yeah, we're in the case in the back room.
They're on a case in the back room. So please take the time to see the originals. So that's it.
Okay.
And now you have to take questions.
Are there any questions? I forgot.
I noticed that if you compare the new with the old had more porches. Now, first, would you agree to that? And then, is it indicative of people spending more time outside than we do now?
Oh, I think people spend their time out, not necessarily, but they spend their time outside now maybe differently in a certain way. I mean, there was no air conditioning, right? And so people, I'm not sure I could give a definitive answer on that. I think porches often get changed because they're one of their first things to rot. Too, frankly, and if they're, and it might be very expensive if it's a very elaborate porch. So I think some practicality may play a part of that as well. But I mean, one of the things that sold me on my house is that I've got a screen porch that was original, and well, we have had it rebuilt, but there was one originally, and it's one of the highlights to me to be able to, and we've glassed it in so it could be 3-season too, but it's one of the highlights of the house for me. So I can't speak for others, but hi.
Hi. Just a question. The kind of internal archways that look like the Muji.
Right.
Do you think that's from maybe a Persian influence? Because it has that feel a little bit of Muslim style.
I mean, he did spend a year there. I think it's probably more of a Tudor influence, actually. But he was in Persia for a year when he was right out of college. So sure, he did have some firsthand. And then he actually traveled. I forgot to say this. Traveled a bit around Europe, kind of like his gap year or whatever, grand tour before he came home. So I don't think so, but you could be wrong. You're not necessarily wrong. Jamie.
Great talk, thank you. The sepia images are sepia. And
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the color scheme would be? Like, he did so many houses, the neighborhood would have a color scheme, and now the gray and yellow. Can you talk about that?
No. I mean, there's no information. I mean, the photos are black and white or sepia. You can see that in that Pine Street, that 5 Pine Street, which is now quite nicely done in those various greens. You can see it was a lot darker. It was probably brown. You know, there were a lot more, and a lot of all the half timbering.
Cabot Street houses were brown.
And a lot of those were brown and white. Yeah, I don't. But that's about all I could say because we don't have information. Although I might check with Mr. Macris, who has some interesting new documents that I'm going to look at, and one of them talks about painting, but I don't know if it talks about color. I haven't looked at it yet, but thanks.
You mentioned speculation and developers. What percentage would you guess were made to order for owners versus what were on spec?
Oh.
Do you have any idea of that?
I'd say on spec, because I think this is a guess because Firth was on spec for the Firth family. A lot, as I said, not just 92 and 94 Church, but were for Phineas Nickerson. But Phineas Nickerson also, his obituary does mention that he did houses for Nickerson on Stratford, and if you can guess which ones they were, and also on Everett and on Sheffield, and that's a lot of houses. You know, it's a lot. It's not all of them, but it's yep. But around town there are also one here, one there. You know, too. So we just don't have that information. But any place that there's a cluster, I feel, yeah. I will say that later in his career, when Coit, there is evidence that Coit bought some land as a developer himself on Lakeview. And so, he might have, for a few of them, been his own developer, but certainly not early on, not in the 1890s.
Thank you.
So.
You showed a house in Illinois.
Yeah.
It was based on something similar.
Well, that was done by the firm that he worked for, long Harlow. I was just showing the similarities, to. Yeah. Well, the other ones were closer afield. They were from Cambridge, but.
So by a show of hands, and I'll get to you, Carolyn. How many people here live in a Coit house? Oh my God! That is wonderful.
Well, I'd love if you guys know any more, have any details or information about paperwork or plans. Please let me know because I'm constantly trying to fill in, what I know. Thanks.
Yeah. Carol.
Do you know how many people were involved in this firm?
Coit?
To design all these houses?
Well, he was a solo. He did not have a partner, but for
a lot of workers.
Well, yes, I'm sure he had younger associates and draftsmen, but he was not in a partnership, an equal partnership ever with another architect. Like Longfellow, Alden, or Harlow was three of them. Architectural firms. They list all the partners. Ever him.
Impressive.
I'm sure he didn't do all his own drafting.
Ron?
His career spanned about 40 years, and he designed 8 homes.
In Winchester. He also did some houses in Brookline and in Newton and in Beverly and in New Hampshire. Yeah.
Very prolific.
He was a prolific guy. So.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you. It's been wonderful having you. Thank you so much. Hopefully you'll learn a little something. I know some folks here may not be members, and so this is my official, hey, come join us. We like to have fun, and we'd love to see you here.
Yeah, and don't forget to look at those photos, the originals.
Yes, right in that case right there, you'll see the originals. And November 12th at the Jane Center, come see a great movie by Peter Engeldrum. So